Hi guys, in this video I'm going to talk about line quality again, and I'm going to focus in particular on the different types of lines that we can use when doing industrial design, sketching for industrial design. So again, line quality. And speaking about different types of lines that we can use in our sketches, we have construction lines. Construction lines are super light, almost invisible. Usually they are vanishing towards the horizon line. Like in this case, I can design the horizon line and a couple of vanishing points, but keeping these lines super light. As you can see, you can barely see them. Okay, so construction lines help you to keep in mind where the perspective is, and they really help you out to control how to develop your drawing in the space, keeping in control actually those lines that are raised above the horizon lines, and keeping in control the position of the lines under the horizon line. Okay, then we have design lines. Design lines are lines that are a little bit darker, and they contain information that is relevant to communicate form. So for example, if I'm building a rounded box here, if you notice, the lines that I'm using now are a little bit darker, and in particular here, where I want the focal point to be, I am trying to exaggerate the darkness of my lines. So this is probably an important line. This is also important. And here, if this is rounded, I'm going to add a couple of lines describing the form here a little bit better. Okay, so if you notice, focal point is kind of dark, but all the form is going to be described by darker lines. So design lines are a little bit darker. Then we have section lines. Section lines are lines that I can sketch on top of my object, very light, almost as light as the construction lines, and they help the viewer to understand what is the form of the object. Usually there is a center line, and sometimes you can see section lines on the side as well. My recommendation is don't exaggerate with section lines. Usually one per side is enough. Make sure they are very light. You don't want to have a section line like this. A section line that is too dark is very distracting. You want the focal point to be the design. You don't want the focal point to be your section line. And then at the end we have cut lines. What is the cut line? Cut line is communicating a separation of the material. A cut line is always a dark, solid black line. Like in this case, if I want to communicate that this part of my design is a button that can be detached, this is how you would communicate that. Then I also introduce a section line describing the separation of the materials. Okay, probably here, if there is a disconnection between the parts, there will be another line. But we will see these things actually as we progress in the class. But for now, let's keep in mind that there are basically 4 families of lines. Construction lines are super light. and they basically set the perspective. Then we have design lines, a little bit darker, and in particular they create a lot of drama in the focal point, in that area of the drawing next to the viewer. Then we have section lines, helping you to understand what happens to the surfaces. And then we have cut lines that are usually dark, like solid black lines. Just make sure that they are interesting. So in this part next to the viewer, the cut line is thicker and heavier than here because this part is further out. Okay? Keep practicing.